Most people who are watching this are probably waiting for an update on my 3D printed Enigma machine. This is one of the rotors from that here. Now, I haven't made a lot of progress on it, mainly because it's been winter here, and it's just been a bit tricky coming home in the evenings when it's dark and having to sit down and do all the wiring that's going to be needed for this machine. So that's been put aside for a little while. But I have still been doing Enigma type things. Now, there's a bit of background to this story, but one of the things I like is old pocket watches. I used to carry a pocket watch as my main watch for years, and this one was actually my favorite one. Just a little Omega watch that unfortunately on my last trip overseas I dropped it on the floor and it broke. One of the problems with pocket watches these days is finding somebody who can actually repair them for you. Now, the watches themselves can be quite cheap. These aren't fancy ones, they're just cheap ones. Which means when you do find somebody who can fix them, it's very expensive and it's just not worthwhile. So that was my favorite watch. I do have this other one, which is called a hunter style watch with this little spring-loaded lid. Now, one of the things I've done is after I broke my favorite one, I actually made myself a little sort of pocket watch. It's not actually a watch, it's actually a little music player. It's engraved with the logo of the company behind the Orient Express, and basically when you press the button, hopefully it's audible. All it's doing is playing a steam train journey from start to end. It takes exactly an hour and then it turns itself off. Not very practical for anything. I actually used to use it to help me get to sleep sometimes. If I couldn't get to sleep, I just found the sound relaxing. It does play, pop the back. It is just a generic little MP3 player in there, just all stuffed in there. And you can change the songs it plays. There's various things on there. You can turn it off. But having built this, and I've carried it around for quite a while, just have something in my watch pocket, I got the idea of, well, why can't I just rebuild the Enigma machine wristwatch that I've previously made, take the same electronics as in this, and fit it into a pocket watch. So that's basically what I've done. And this is another hunter style case that I got online, cheaply, because the watch inside it was dead. The mechanism was completely knackered, and there were bits missing and things, so I didn't feel bad about pulling this watch apart. It's another hunter watch, which means when you press the button, the lid opens. This was actually, I think it's called a half hunter. It had a little window there. And so what I've done is I've etched my own logo, a little Enigma logo. And you can see the pattern there is actually the outline of a Enigma rotor. And stuck that on the front. Now, basically, all I've done is taken the electronics from the pocket watch and shrunk it down as much as I could and put it into the pocket watch. And so what we have when you open the lid is basically the exact same thing, but in a pocket watch format. Obviously it's completely portable, and there's a little sprung-loaded switch plunger there, which is what turns it on and off automatically when you open the lid. So when the lid closes, it turns it off. It's a bit like a fridge, actually. You don't really know if it's turned off. You just have to kind of assume that the light's off when the door's shut. But I know that this one works. And basically it works exactly the same as the wristwatch. So you can select the rotors, the orders, the ring settings, all sorts of things, and select the letters that you want to encode and start coding. And that's basically it. So like I say, it's completely self-contained. That is actually how you know that the power turns off, that it shows you the splash screen when it starts up, so you know it's turned itself off. This one actually uses a slightly different sort of Arduino to the wristwatch, and it's slightly faster for some reason. So that's basically it. So I'll probably carry this around now, just because I'm odd like that. I thought I'd show how the watch gets assembled into the watch casing. This is the watch case. It was what's called a hunter watch. Actually, this one was a half hunter, which meant it had a little window here. I have etched my own little Enigma label out of brass, and I stuck that on to cover up the hole. There's a little plate there. It's all just soldered to keep it together. You can see the watch actually has the front cover, which opens with the button, and the little back cover, and it always has these sort of two cover arrangement. There's a little dust cover and then the main back. So what I've done when I've built the watch is it's all actually sitting on a very, very thin piece of circuit board. I think this is 0.5mm thick PCB, and it's actually quite flexible, which is good because when it goes into the watch, it actually ends up curving a little bit to match the curvature in the bottom of the watch. You can see the Arduino is sandwiched in there, and this is the little OLED screen. And I've actually had to cut the screen down a bit to get it all to fit. This button here is the power button, the on-off switch, and this is the little battery holder. You may be wondering how you get the batteries in and out. The batteries I'm actually using are LR54s, just these little button cells, so it takes 3 of those. They're quite small. Obviously I didn't have a lot of room in the watch, so these were the only ones that could fit. And these just slide down into there. You just sort of push them in. This little brass tube is insulated on the outside, and it's just making contact at the bottom. And the contact at the bottom is arranged so that you can't actually put the batteries in upside down. Well, you can put them in upside down, but if you do, they won't make electrical contact. Now, to get the batteries out again is a bit of a mission, but I just use a little magnet on the end of a screwdriver. And you can sort of just pull them out like that. So, put the batteries back in, like that. Now, the buttons, obviously this is the front face. It sort of just sits on top of there, like that. And the buttons have to go between the face and the little push buttons. So these are kind of turned down, just from little pieces of brass. Now obviously you have to get those to hold in place. So what I do is I actually use little pieces of kept on tape, just stuck onto the front panel. And if I can find the right button, and the button heads just stick to the tape, and that's enough to just hold them in place while I assemble everything. So that one there, this one here. So the buttons just fit on like that. Now to assemble the actual watch, when it's assembled, the top plate clamps it into the watch here. So what you have to do is you have to fit the circuit board in through the bottom of the watch. It sits on that base, and then you can rotate it around until it's lined up, and then clip it in place. And that circuit board is now actually bowed slightly, and I had to take that into account when I drilled all the holes and things to get it to fit. You can see there isn't a lot of room in there. It's pretty tight. With the back in place, you can clip the little back cover in, And then this should now basically just slot in. It's a little bit fiddly. You have to be very careful of the screen when you're assembling it. And obviously you have to get the plunger for the power switch through the little hole, and then you can get everything lined up like that. Now I'm just using little 2mm brass screws. So one of it goes, yeah. And this screw goes down to the battery contact, and this is just a little piece of springy bronze, I think it is, which I pulled off an old, it was actually a World War II piece of radio equipment. You can see, of course, it turns on as soon as I attach the battery clip. So we tighten that up. We can remove the tape. And that's basically the watch assembled. You can see how the little power plunger works. So when the lid closes up, of course the watch turns off. You can see, just like a modern laptop, when you open the lid, the logo's up the right way. And that's pretty much it. It works exactly the same as the watch, the wristwatch that I made and did a film about some time ago. So the actual behavior of it is exactly the same. We can, if I take this off, we can actually compare the sizes. So it's my magnet. So you can see there's quite a big difference in the size, especially when closed up, and also quite a difference in the thickness. Overall, they're about the same thickness, but there's much less usable space in the watch because of the rounded sides and the rounded corners. And that's pretty much that.